Welcome, guys, to this evening's All Things REI podcast. You got myself, Tom McCormick, and we got Jeremy McGraw as our co-host. And today we got a fantastic special guest that we want to have on for a while. He's actually a prolific podcaster himself, but more importantly, he's a mortgage agent, a local Amherstburg's councillor, and he's here to talk to us today about all things real estate in that mortgage world. And Linden Crain, how you doing, man?
Welcome.
Boys, thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. You're looking rather dapper. I appreciate you guys coming on this podcast to talk to me and Jeremy today.
Yeah, man, I usually don't dress up like this at home, but for you guys, always.
Awesome. Well, I guess, Linden, we give you a little intro, but how about you explain to the guys that are watching this or in the future watching this who you are and what you're about, because I think you're the person that could describe yourself the best.
Yes, so my name is Linden Crain. I'm a mortgage agent here in Windsor, Essex. I've been doing it since January 2023. I'm with the Super Mortgage team, so we're Canada's largest mortgage brokerage. We do more mortgage volume than any of the big banks. There's three companies a part of Dominion Lending Centers Group: Dominion Lending Centers, Mortgage Center Canada, and Mortgage Architects. So it's about 9,000 agents with our brokerage. I'm lucky to be a part of it. And aside from the mortgage business, I'm also a town councillor in Amherstburg. I was elected in 2022, and our term goes until 2026. Aside from real estate and politics, I host a podcast. Love doing that. Hanging out with family, hanging out with my dog, and yeah, just pumped to be here.
And what's your podcast name, so you can plug it here, just in case
Yes.
people don't know?
Yeah, so it's Coffee with Crainer. I started it in 2020, working towards 200 guests. So we'll keep it going.
That's crazy. We're only on episode number 5 of the All Things REI podcast, so we got a ways to go to catch up to you, but that's fantastic, man. I guess what made you, I'm just more curious because we're on a podcast ourselves, but what made you want to start doing a podcast? Because it sounds like you've been doing it for quite a while and quite consistently too.
Yeah, it was during the pandemic. I was in university at the time. I was in, I think, second or third year, and pandemic happened. Everyone went online, and I figured, hey, I would attend a lot of conferences throughout the year, listen to speakers on the stage, and thought maybe I'll bring that platform to social media, and started using StreamYard, a platform very similar to this, and then really just started to interview industry leaders in Windsor Essex, and with an opportunity to provide that advice to young people who may not have the opportunity to meet with that entrepreneur or that business leader or really any type of industry. So I wanted to provide that advice to people for free.
It's all about providing value, and that's why me and Jeremy like doing this as well. And sometimes we also, and most of the time, we learn something too in the process.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah. I guess
With your podcast I'm just curious to the unknown, because you said you've had about 200 people on there. Like, there's a lot of conversations you've had. Is there like a specific maybe guest or conversation that has stayed with you?
There's been a lot of great people, but I've been asked this question before, and I'd have to say it would be Barry Zeckelman, hands
Wow.
down.
Yeah.
A Man of Steel.
Yeah, Man of Steel. He was my 100th guest on the show, and it was somebody that I was very persistent to have on the podcast. I was actually turned down a few times. His schedule was busy. He had no clue who I was, and then I really started to interview people in his network. And by then, I had said, "Listen, it's my 100th episode. I'd be honored to have you on. Also, by the way, I've interviewed, A, B, and C. They're in your circle. You can trust that this is a platform that it's not going to make you look bad."
Right.
And luckily enough, he finally said yes, and it was such a cool experience. He's a very, very successful entrepreneur from the area, and about a year after we had done that podcast, we were out in Arizona, and my girlfriend and I were lucky enough to go see him and give a 100th guest plaque at his plant, and I got a whole tour of the facility. So it was just yeah, it took like 2 or 3 years to get him on, and I'm happy he pulled the trigger.
That's dedication. I like what you did. You were persistent, but also you kind of
Strategic.
social hacked this by doing all his friends or people around him. That's
Yes.
the way to do it to kind of break in those circles and get past those gatekeepers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So I guess what happened first? Were you a podcaster first, or a city councilor, or mortgage agent? What's the timeline here on all this taking
Yeah,
place?
I was a student, and then I was an online student doing my podcast. The podcast landed me a job working for Drew Dilkins back in 2020 to about 2022, 2023. And then from there, I got elected. When I was elected, I was looking for a job that worked well with my council schedule, and I didn't have to request time off from work. I could be flexible, and fell into the mortgage business.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, because I was wondering, and so was Jeremy. How do you juggle that? You know?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's it's about building systems, I think, right? When I first started in the mortgage business, it wasn't as busy as I am now, and I had that flexibility. A council position isn't your typical 9 to 5. You have bi-weekly meetings with your peers, your council colleagues, and then you have committee meetings. And aside from that, it's residents reaching out, it's grand openings, it's solving their issues throughout the week. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's very labor intensive. You're probably 10, 15 hours a week, so it does allow you to have a full-time job on top of that. So it's just a matter of, like you had mentioned, Tom, like booking your calendar and staying busy. As I live on my calendar, and that's that's my life. So
So when I was doing my digging here, I noticed that something came up that you're Amherstburg, potentially even Windsor County's youngest ever town councilor
I think so.
at 22.
I was elected 22, so I believe in Amherstburg, the youngest. I don't know about Windsor Essex. I haven't looked into that too much. There might have been an article or something. Definitely not the youngest in Canada. I was at a
Wow.
conference probably last year, and I met an 18-year-old counselor
Wow.
in
Holy
Ontario.
cow,
So
fresh.
yeah, he was fresh. I mean, I was only 4 years older, but
Sure, sure.
still, good on him. And there was a
Absolutely. And
19-year-old
different
mayor.
ideas too, right?
Yeah, yeah. So,
So why politics? Like what got you into that? Like what got you into the town council? Like do you have aspirations to continue on with that or?
no, I don't actually. I'd stay at the municipal level. I'm not
Mhm.
interested in federal or provincial politics. I find it's very toxic. And
Yeah.
I right now in my life, I don't see myself joining a party and having to always follow the party's guidelines
Sure.
and
Very
vision.
good.
I like being an independent on a municipal level.
Hmm.
I think politics was always something I wanted to pursue. In high school, I was on student council as the president or prime minister of the council, and then I went on to joining the University of Windsor's student union and chaired their board there. So I felt the need to serve a body of people and be their voice. And I figured, hey, I'm already involved in Amherstburg. I'm working on committees. Why not take this to another level and have a larger impact? So put my foot in the ring, and or hat in the ring, whatever you want to call it. But in 2022, I just went full throttle. Started in June campaigning, and we got done in October.
And
Wow.
you're from Amherstburg, I assume, right?
Yep,
Is
born
that
and
why
raised.
you?
Yep.
Okay,
I
great,
love it. I'm a
great.
fan of you already. Born and raised on Pike Road myself.
Oh, sick.
Yes,
Nice.
sir. County boy.
Yeah.
But all right, that's sweet how you got in politics, and I like the fact too, like that you don't want to be beholden to one specific party because I think sometimes they're a little too rigid. But we don't need
Mhm.
to dive into politics too long here. I think maybe
Yeah.
we can do that offline because I
Yeah.
bet you
Yeah.
got some opinions, and
Oh,
so
of
do I,
course.
and so does
I
Jeremy
do
actually
have
too.
I
Oh
do
yeah, go
have
ahead,
one
Jeremy.
thing though,
Of
because it does
course.
involve real estate. Going back to our last all things already our last re-up there, we heard that there's potentially a big increase for development charges
Yeah,
in
good
the
point.
Amherstburg area that's coming up. Is there anything you can share with us, or because the biggest thing for us, and I guess you as a mortgage agent, you're going to get a lot of calls based off affordability, and it's something that you have a firsthand view as both a mortgage agent and possibly as a counselor.
Hmm. I know there was an increase. I don't believe it's as large as people may be sharing online. It's definitely not something that council's been approached too much by developers. People are still building.
Mhm.
I mean, we have like record number of development in the past year in town. So, as an elected official, we want to be open for business and make sure that we're also competitive with other municipalities. If somebody can build for cheaper in LaSalle, in my opinion, like we want to keep them in the burg, right? So
Mhm.
um, the specifics of the DCs, I don't have enough information on me right now to go into full detail, but
Sure.
I know as myself, I want to make sure that we can keep as much as we can in town.
I think people
It's been
appreciate
a
that.
building spree for the last probably since COVID, to be honest with you. It's
Mm.
been nonstop new development.
Hmm.
Yes.
Even on like Front Road and in towards Amherstburg, you see those big condos. They're beautiful. A nice
Oh,
view
they
too.
are.
Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot
I
of
used to
stuff
live
like
in
that
one.
going up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, you lived in one?
I did in the River's Edge apartments.
Oh
Yeah, last
wow,
year.
wow.
Yeah.
I guess
Interesting.
what other trends are you seeing right now in Amherstburg? Because I know you're born and raised there, and you probably keep a finger on the pulse being a counselor. But in terms of um, the kind of the Windsor Essex and the real estate market, are you seeing a lot of people also purchasing, flipping, doing a lot of projects there besides new builds? Like what's kind of the demographic or the types of projects you're seeing that are going on? Maybe you could
I
enlighten us a
see
bit.
yeah, I see a lot of revitalization downtown Amherstburg, like big time.
Mm,
Beautiful. Probably one of my fits sort of hop in there, but
of
one of
course.
Yeah.
my favorite downtowns. And I grew up in a picturesque downtown in called Port Perry. But man,
Yes.
Amherstburg is the last little bit. Can you maybe talk a bit more afterwards about downtown Amherstburg?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's like a ton of development with commercial properties downtown. And when Richard Petty had opened up the bookstore and flipped that property, you started to see a spiral effect of businesses on Richmond Street starting to restore those buildings.
Hmm.
And really, it seems to be like council meeting after council meeting, heritage meeting after heritage meeting, that more of those commercial buildings are starting to be fixed up. Like uh, there's probably 4 or 5 cafes in Amherstburg now that are
Oh
opening
yeah.
up shop. The Hotel Story where Lori Briette is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
She'd be great to have a tour of that space. But yeah,
Ooh.
it's incredible about how many dollars are being poured in the town. We have a heritage conservation district that the town's looking at doing where there's properties of interest that are downtown that will have specific guidelines to ensure that their heritage aspects of the buildings are protected.
Right.
So
Maintain that.
yeah, so we can maintain that look and feel that character that makes Amherstburg. So
It is, yeah, it's something stunning, and I've never seen something be put together as quickly as it has
mhm.
in that sense. I don't think you could even, it's a gold mine of an area down there. And to be honest with you, I think my office, Mitch Deeslip there, I believe, and
Yes.
Jason, they just did I think the old Doobies. I think they
Yep.
just put that up for lease now, and the renderings just look stunning.
Yes.
I
Yes.
want to say it's that building, but it was stunning. So
Yeah, it
it's
is that
great to
building.
see him. And is it just like, is there a few people that are doing it? Is it just Richard? Like,
No, I think
what's
it's a group of people. I mean, Dan Gemis has
Mhm,
invested a lot downtown. Lori
mhm.
Briette, her team, the owners of Bucket List. There's a collection of them, and I think when one investor starts it, the rest start to come, and they see that vision.
Right. You always
Mhm.
need that first shovels in the ground. Otherwise, then you're saying, what's my comps going to be like? Or you're kind of
Yeah,
worried,
yeah,
is this actually going to be a win or is it going to be a flop? So yeah,
yeah,
once someone takes
yeah,
that first risk, then and assuming they do well, then yeah, everything just shoots off and everyone wants to get in on the action too. So I
yeah.
love to see it. And I'll just interject one thing is I love too when they shut down the street during the summertime. That's a great place to go for like a date or just out for a night for some food and some drinks.
100%.
Yeah. And then I guess with all like the interest rates fluctuating, do you see what do you kind of see with your crystal ball for like the developments or first time home buyers? Because now that you're doing all the mortgages, are you
Mhm.
seeing, regardless of rates, people are still wanting to invest in Amherstburg? Are you seeing it's slower compared to last year? What are you kind of seeing on the horizon?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my deals are out in the Windsor area still.
Okay.
Uh,
Hmm.
a few in Amherstburg, nothing too crazy. I mean,
Talk about anything, yeah. Just
Yeah.
anything in
Any
general,
place
like
I should say.
Windsor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, I with the tariffs on the horizon, I think that we're going to be in if they're implemented on March 4th, like
They just, my girlfriend just let me know, I think about an hour ago, that I believe it's being delayed till April now.
Oh,
I
off
don't
for
know how
us.
to 100% confirmed, but the art, you know what a guy with this, his,
yeah.
the negotiation, the art of the deal, right?
It's gonna be like an April
Um,
Fool's if it's in
I
April.
know. Yeah, hopefully. But I think if that happens, interest rates will drop faster because there's going to be layoffs. There's less outbound trade coming out of Canada, and as inflation goes up, I think they're going to reduce those rates to make sure that people can still afford where they're living, especially if they're on layoff or let go. I can see rates dropping and the market spiking again like it did during COVID.
Oh, interesting. I heard some people also commenting maybe there could be a chance of stagflation if the Bank of Canada doesn't adjust properly. But
Yes. Yeah, I have
I know
heard
it's a
that as
fine
well.
fine line to walk. But I'd probably agree with you
Uh,
that it spikes more often than not because everyone else is waiting on the sidelines, waiting to go. You hear everyone
Yes.
kind of keeping their money liquid, ready to jump in.
Yes.
And I think Jeremy, uh, sorry, I was just looking at a
sorry?
comment there. No, you're good.
Oh,
You're good.
do we
You're
have a
good.
comment?
I thought I saw a comment on the restream, but
Oh,
I think it was just a
so
personal chat.
I was having a conversation with someone prior, and the idea too that even if like the tariffs don't come into place, I think a lot of people we have more of that buy Canadian mentality now. A lot,
Mhm.
and I think we're going to start seeing some, and especially with our dollar that's been crashing too. Do you think this might be a good time to even to buy it right now? I mean, in general, because I think that if more people are not going to go stateside to travel, they might look to upgrade their home. They might decide to put a, maybe expand in their backyard. Have you recently started to see some people too, maybe calling you up for a remortgage to potentially get a pool? Because I guess
Yeah.
now would be the time to start looking into that before the beautiful weather.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of I'm doing a lot of refinances right now.
Yep.
The problem we're running into is the appraised value,
Mm,
especially if they bought during the pandemic over asking,
right.
Yeah.
well over asking. We're not coming in value, and they have negative equity in some situations, especially if they put 5% down
Right.
up to 19.99 and they have that CMHC fee built into the mortgage. So we're seeing a lot of that, but I think debt consolidation is a big one too right now. A lot of people are paying off credit cards, auto loans with high interest rates. So,
That's good. It's a
well, yeah,
plus.
we'll continue to see that. And the market's competitive still. It is like a lot of multiple offers. Things are
Oh
still going
yeah.
100K over. I mean, you guys see this too. Um, and I think it's going to get even busier
Mm-hmm. It's tough to find
this
projects right now
year.
on the MLS. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
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 And
Are good deals.
this year, there's 60% of all mortgages in Canada are coming due in 2025 and 2026.
Wow.
Um, Most people that went in a 5-year term during 2020 or 2021
Yep.
are coming up for renewal now, and they're seeing their rate go from 1.5 to 4.5, right? So it's a price jump.
It's gonna be a
And
shock for some.
yeah, it is, right? So you'll see people make a change there as well as the cost of borrowing increases. But I think it's gonna be a really busy year. But I think it's gonna be better than last year in terms of sales.
Well,
As someone
I
that
like that
actually has a
optimism.
property coming up for renewal in August, kind of
Okay,
give you an
perfect time.
idea, we can do a little case study about my property. So I
Yeah.
bought a duplex on the MLS. Actually, it wasn't listed yet, but I paid MLS pricing because that's what we do, right? I bought it for $210,000 back in 2020, and I got a mortgage at the time, which was a fair mortgage. I shopped around, 2.9%. And my mortgage, and I think I owe like 140 left on it right now, right? So
Mhm.
the way I look at it for people, and this is if you ever watched our other stuff, I've been pretty bearish at some points on some stuff. But in this case here at a 2.9, we'll round up to say 3% mortgage. To renew right now on a duplex, what am I looking at? Like a 4 point, like a mid fours,
You're
maybe?
mid fours.
Yeah.
If it's a rental, there's always
Hmm.
rates
Of
always a little
course.
bit higher. And depending on your amortization on the property, that'll dictate the rate. But you're looking at mid fours. The good thing for you, Jeremy, is that rates are going to be what we're predicting. Variable rates going to be much lower later this year. So you may be at a point where you're accessing 4% or 3.5.
That'd be great.
So I think with you being at 3%, it's not going to be as big of a jump as other
And
people.
that And we also have to remember too, like when I bought, I mean, a duplex at 210 was market value. So I think anyone realistically, if they haven't refinanced out, there's gonna be a lot of equity and we have access to that equity. So even if, like I said, house prices have gone down, they're still, at least in the Windsor area, they're not at 2020 levels. We're
Yes.
at like early 2021. So we haven't seen those refinances yet, I think. Are those, they're not coming up for renewal for quite a bit. But as someone that has a mortgage coming in, and I did buy when things started picking back up, could have probably got a better, I probably could have got that duplex like back in maybe like during when COVID first happened of 2020 for probably like 180. So
Mhm.
I think there's going to be a lot of people there that will be renewing at 3% mortgage. Like if I go up call it a percent, what am I really paying? An extra 100 bucks a month, 150? It's not like it's going to be breaking the bank. So I think a lot of people are taking it out of context that all these people are going to be shooting up like thousands of dollars if they haven't, I mean, maybe in Toronto, for example, but like in the Windsor market, if you bought in 2020, the average house price, I think, was like 250.
Yeah.
So
And where we're seeing a lot of the refinances coming in lower is on new construction.
Oh,
yeah, I can
okay.
see that.
Yeah, it's new
Are you
construction.
seeing builders offer rebates or are they working with their buyers?
I I think builders are starting to come down in price on new
Okay.
construction, which is nice. And there's some that are offering builder buy downs on the interest rate where they'll offer 2.99 for 2 years and they'll pay that interest on closing to help their buyer and make it more appealing. Um, but I'm hoping we start to see some more mid 600 single detached homes because
That'd be
that's
beautiful.
that's what people need is they
Mm,
need single detached or semi-detached in that 5 to 6 range. Under five would be great, but I don't think with the cost of build it's going to
it's
be
hard to
that
beat
low.
that.
No,
Yeah, with all the
Yeah.
build costs and prices. Yeah.
those land cost, yeah.
Yeah, just
But
vacant land is
even
like
in a
300 to
six,
350. Sorry, Jeremy, go ahead.
no, I'm just thinking. So my parents bought a brand new townhome, and they obviously timed it wrong. They bought kind of towards the peak, but they also sold for the peak, and they empty nested out. So
Mhm.
they got a great price for their house at probably a record that won't be touched for quite a bit. However, when they bought for a townhome, I mean, had they bought maybe 6 to 8 months earlier, they probably could have got that townhome for it was a brand new who was the builder? It wasn't a Vola. It's shoot. Tip of my tongue right now. She's gonna hate me for saying it, for not remembering it. But long story
Yeah, yeah.
short, It was a townhome in LaSalle, and it was like I think they were going for 450 on the market, and then we timed it wrong. The builder had one left. We bought the builder model for like 750, and a Vola build behind, bought that was building behind there still are to this day. So, to kind of go on those ones, but we watched some of those go from like 450, 500,000, and they shot up close to probably about 900. So, and when I was telling my clients, hey, you gotta, if you want a brand new house, you're paying $900,000. They're gonna be like,
For a semi.
the income, what kind of income do you even need to make
To qualify for
to
that.
have
Yeah.
a $900,000 house?
Yeah. So it's typically 4 times your income is roughly what you can afford, not including like debts or anything like that.
Of
So
course.
I mean
Best case scenario, pushing around 250.
yeah, at 900. A little bit less I think you can get away with, but yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, they're gonna
So
have a big deposit or get creative with some other ways to finance it.
Yeah.
kind
Actually,
of to go on with about financing there.
yeah, go ahead.
Um, let's just say that a person's in the last 5 years are coming up for a refinance and something's changed. Maybe there's still some equity in the property there. What other options they have besides obviously the A lender banks? Like, is there additional options for them? Maybe to if they, for example, maybe they bought with no conditions recently
Mhm.
and they went a little bit over what they might have been able to be approved for. Is there other options that you
There
deal
are.
with?
Yeah, and that's the best part about being on the broker side. And that's why I went right into the broker space and didn't even bother going into being a mortgage specialist at a bank, is because of the access that we have to lenders. We
Mhm.
have, I believe it's over 50, upwards of 70 different lenders that we have access to.
Wow.
So there's really no client that we turn away. It's just a matter of what interest rate are they willing to pay.
Mhm.
So A lending is your banks. B lending is if they have bruised credit, maybe they're self-employed, not claiming as much income. Maybe they have too many investment properties, and you're paying about 1% to 0.5% higher than the bank's rates. Plus, there's a 1.5% fee that they're going to be paying off the loan. So it's a little bit more expensive, but for those self-employed clients or those clients that need to get in the housing market and have 20% down or 20% in equity, it's a good option. And lastly is C lending, so private lending. You're paying 10 to 15% interest rates, and it's a short-term solution to help build back up their credit, switch them back to a B lender, and then graduate them to an A. So there's so many options, and we can be much more creative on our side.
I
I
like
think
it.
as investors, we like hearing that the options because a lot of
Yes.
times we buy properties that are pieces of work or there's always something that goes wrong in the financing in the finance of these projects. So hearing that you have options and that there's ways to kind of even if it has a higher interest rate being a short term fix like a bridge loan, that's fantastic. What do you find? Because you're investing yourself now, do you find there's a lot of investor clients coming to you now since you kind of have that expertise and you're in the space
Yes.
yourself, or do you focus on both investor and some residential? What's kind of your uh, preferred bread and butter?
Yeah, I love first-time home buyers, self-employed clients. I'll service anybody, but I think a bulk of my business is first-time home buyers.
Mhm.
Self-employed individuals, and then investors, whether it's flippers or people that are buying long-term rentals, short-term rentals. We really specialize in that space as well, and we have so many programs where we can fit that type of client in. And we're doing a lot of refinances of primary residences or second homes and using that equity to help them buy more real estate.
That's smart too. I guess hypothetically, as a first-time home buyer, what are like some top one, top two, top three things that you need to be aware of when buying your first house? Because I bet you come in with some people and they know nothing, but maybe this is some chance to shed some light on the process.
Yeah. Big thing, car payments.
Hmm.
Car payments kill deals. We see if somebody has a car payment of 500 bucks to 700 bucks, like you're talking about 100 grand in buying power out the door. So If you can, avoid a lease or finance vehicle until after you close. Um, Make sure that you have at least 5% plus 1.5% of the purchase price. So 6.5 to cover closing costs. Many people forget about land transfer tax, provincial sales tax when they're putting less than 20% down, legal fees,
Mm.
and we're tight on closing day. So every mortgage broker should be advising their clients on the breakdown of what to expect at the lawyer's office, but we see a lot of clients not knowing what to expect on closing day. Um, what else would I say? Credit, like focus on your credit. If it's below 680, our lenders start to scale back how much they're going to loan you. So if it's at 600 is your credit score, we might have to scale back slightly.
Hmm.
Once it's below 600, and most A lenders are not going to touch you, especially if you're putting less than 20% down, because you're
And
not just
that's when you
doing
would
it.
go to B?
That's when we go to B if they have that 20% down payment.
Okay.
If they don't, um, we have to wait until that credit builds back up. So focus on your savings, limit your expenses. If you have a student loan, that's okay. Let's work on getting that to a minimum monthly payment for you. Because any type of debt, we have to associate a monthly payment with it, right?
Mm.
So a credit card, we have to take 3% of the balance and attribute that to a monthly payment. If it's an auto loan or a lease, it's a fixed payment. We can't touch it. It's automatically thrown into the credit bureau.
Oh man, yeah. So there's nothing you can massage or or tweak
No,
by
nothing to
doing that.
massage there or pay down to adjust the payments. Like we can't,
Yeah.
unless the balance on the car is lower. And then student loans, where we can get creative, is let's say they have a $20,000 student loan. What we would advise them is go to national student loans, have them drop that payment down to the bare minimum. Because instead of us using a payment of 300 bucks, if they're going to let you do a minimum monthly payment of 50 or 100, now we're going to see that boost, right?
Wow.
And then if they want to change it after closing day and start ramping more towards the student loan, they can. But it's just a way to start lowering their monthly expenses.
So all they'd have to do is ask, basically. Like who
All
would
you
have
have to do is ask,
thought?
and the broker's got to tell you. If your broker's not telling you, I don't think they're doing their job.
Oh wow.
I will say in my almost 10 years of real estate, that's the first time anyone's ever mentioned that. I don't think
Yeah, I
I've
hadn't
ever
heard that
heard
either.
anyone. No, I
Yep.
didn't even know that. Thank
And,
you.
and a good thing right now with first-time home buyers, good and bad. Good thing is we can do a 30-year amortization
Okay, great.
instead of the standard 25 now that they're first-time home buyers. And
Yeah.
it's giving us that boost. It's getting us from 270 purchase price to
Yeah.
310 or 300, right? So that's helpful, but they're paying 5 years more of interest, right?
Right.
But for some people, they're going to be moving into another house anyways, in probably 5 to 7 years if they're a first-time home buyer. So realistically, they just want to get into a home, enjoy it for a bit, and then they're going to be on a new mortgage anyways, right? So,
That's how I look at real estate, right? When we bought our house,
mhm.
I knew like it's going to take a while to pay this thing off because of the loan size and the price of homes now. It's not like we have a $60,000 mortgage like
Yeah.
back in the
Yeah,
in the
we
70s
all
and 80s,
wish.
Yeah.
right? So for
Yeah.
me, I'm looking at real estate as the appreciated value and not as how quick can I pay down this loan. So if we have to
Oh
go to a
yeah.
30-year amortization or a 35 or a 40 with the B lender, and that's going to help my monthly cash flow and help me buy another property because I'm servicing less debt per month, I'm going to do that.
Looks like you're gonna
Awesome.
say
Is
something,
there
Jeremy.
any other tips or tricks? I know that we had I don't know how much you can speak about this because it's the first time home buyers, like the RRSP kind of thing, the first time home buyer. I don't know too
Yes.
much about it. I'm not a first time home buyer, but
Yeah.
maybe
It's
you know a bit more than I do about that.
It's okay. I mean, it's good from a tax savings perspective.
Yeah.
You can contribute if there's a couple buying a house as first-time home buyers, they can
Yep.
contribute 60K each towards an RSP. But let's be honest, there's not many first-time home buyers that have 120 grand saved up in RSPs.
Right.
I gotcha.
They just increased that, but I don't know how much of an effect it's going to have. I think it was 35, now it's 60 per person.
I wonder almost if they did it because they know not very many people can take advantage, but it's almost like they're showing, hey, we're doing something. At least we're doing
Yeah.
something.
The
But
A
big thing
question
that, yeah, sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to mention land transfer tax. I'd
Yes.
really like to see like the federal government change that, or provincial, whoever's in charge of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the land transfer tax is not enough. It goes up to about 380K in purchase price. So first
Which
several
is,
months
yeah.
buying something for 380, it'll cover the full land transfer tax, which is 4K.
Mhm.
Once you get above 380, you start paying out of pocket.
Oh,
Like, and yes, you get land transfer tax rebate up to 4,000, but many homes are not going for 380 right now.
right. If you are, it's like a barely a two-bedroom house.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that changed in the future to help support more young people that are trying to buy something that's 600K and they don't want to be slapped with a $2,000 to $3,000 bill.
Hmm. Is
That's,
there anything else you
I
can
mean,
think of that maybe would help uh, just in the real estate in Canada? Because right now we have a housing crisis. Any other policies or things, at least from the mortgage perspective, you think that could maybe help or that you wish could be implemented? I'd be interested to hear what you think.
Yeah, it's obviously a tough issue to solve. More inventory, the better.
Hmm.
I think that the problem is we're not building homes fast enough, and the cost to build is expensive.
Yeah, it's just keeps
So
going higher.
you hear a lot of people that like we hear it on a political level too. Is there'll be a new development, and people will say, well, why isn't this affordable? And one, a developer's there to make money. And if it's too expensive to build, they have to increase their price. And the only way that they're going to reduce their price is if it gets cheaper or if they're subsidized by the government. So you're seeing a lot of that with rental buildings. There's a lot of CMHC programs out there that will I think they can offer 50-year amortizations to help lower the borrowing costs for builders, but
Yeah, it's tough to
it's
even get that though, because you got to get certain requirements like environmental or accessibility and all those things to get your
yes.
points. So that's like the golden goose.
Exactly. So it's I think it's make it cheaper, subsidize builders when you can, and we got to lower the cost of building and increase inventory. But it's not going to happen overnight. And will it happen in the next 5 years? Probably not. Not to be a pessimist,
No,
but
no, you're right though. You're being realistic because I think people expect it to happen overnight. Oh, we put in this new policy at the federal level and then all of a sudden it trickles through. But no, it takes minimum 6 to 8 months to build something in the first place. So there's always that lag effect between policy and actual shovels in the ground and then the building structure coming up.
the ADU piece is helpful, right?
Mm,
In Amherstburg, you can have three units on your property, right?
right, right.
Upper, lower, and you can have an ADU. I think that's going to be big.
you didn't want
What
to do the fourth one?
I don't I don't think well we can't allow it yet, so we'll
Yeah.
see if that ever is brought up. But what is helpful now is lenders, they've changed the rules where if somebody is has an ADU or is building an ADU, when we're doing the refinance, we can now factor in that ADU as an increased value to the property. We can't finance a single ADU because there's difficulty with the bank obtaining that property and listing it because it's one parcel, right?
Mm,
Yeah.
You got the single family or whatever properties in the front, ADU in the back. Very, very tough to separate those two from a financing standpoint. So the only way to finance an ADU as of right now is to use your own cash or to refinance your home and pull out that equity to help build it. But I think that's going to be a big one. We're going to see more of it, more ADUs, more mother-in-law suites, kids living on their property with their parents, and then hopefully, can buy their own house one day.
yeah. I see actually that's a trend going back to the old days where everyone like three, four generations lived on the same plot of land. It's kind of going back to those times. But
I think so. Yep.
yeah, I don't know if that's
Have
necessarily a
you
bad thing either. We just had it so good in Canada, just having all this space.
Yes.
but I guess it's more of a personal preference. I want to say one thing too is there was a government grant that just happened as of January for ADUs, right? Or there was a
Yes.
certain something
There,
that,
I think Christina Freeland brought it up, right?
oh, maybe it hasn't
Okay.
been implemented yet. I apologize. I heard
There
something
was
about it. I wasn't sure if you
elections,
heard something.
so
Okay, it was just one of those ploys.
Of
I don't
course.
know. It is interesting though that the federal election is here or here soon, and we have a lot of po housing policy being dropped.
Yeah, it's hard to follow everything and like what's what and who said
Yeah.
it.
Have you done much for refinancing or for financing with ADUs at all? Has there been a lot
Not
in
a
Windsor
ton.
area?
No, not a ton. I think like to build an ADU, I don't know what the cost would be, 1 to 200K, 200K probably.
That's about
About
right.
150, 160 starting at. Actually, Tom, your brother built one, right?
Yeah,
So you'd have a
that
little bit
was a
more
little
know.
different though because he already had it was essentially a garage, and so he just converted it. So he already had the slab in the structure, but
Oh, yeah.
even just doing that, it was about 100K.
Yeah.
So
So we,
so he
we need
didn't actually save that
100K,
much.
and not a lot of people that bought 5 years ago have 100K in equity.
Hmm.
And just to keep in mind, like let's say a property's worth 600K, the bank's only going to give them 80% of it.
Yeah.
So the bank's going to only give them 480K. And if they have a mortgage on there for 350, um, they would have access to about 130. But if it's anything higher, like you start to run out of capital.
Right. Could you then get like a secondary mortgage or something with one of your B or C lenders, or get a construction loan somehow tacked on to that to supplement?
No,
No,
it's tough because a private lender doesn't want to go above 80% of the value of the property.
I guess yeah, the bank themselves. Yeah.
It's too much risk. So
Yeah, I guess it's tough because you can't really lend on future ARV or after repair value. I know there's some lenders in the States who do it, but that's like, again, that's very, very rare to actually get something like that.
well, yeah, you could like if the private lender's on board and they have certainty that okay, they're going to build a $200,000 ADU and the value's going to go from 6 to 8, they
Hmm.
may be more inclined to do that.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'll say anecdotally, I'm actually living in my ADU right now, and because I did
Yeah.
one myself, but the appraisal was tough. like,
Oh yeah.
I definitely I spent more than I should have because it was the first ever project I did, and it took way longer than it should have too. But all that being said, when it came to refinance, they didn't know how to value the property because they said, well, this is kind of like a duplex, but it's not. And even though it's all brand new because you gutted it to the studs, we still can't really value it properly with all the income.
Mhm.
So I basically, I feel like at least I got it valued at basically half of what the additional ADU was worth. So
Yeah.
that was
Big
back, mind you,
making it
back in
legal.
2021. So maybe back then too, ADUs were still a bit more fresh and appraisers didn't know, and banks didn't really know how to consider them.
Yeah, as long as it's legal, we can use that as added rental income, right? There was a property that we almost bought last year, and it was on Alma. You might have
Oh
seen it.
yeah,
It was. You know
Alma.
what I'm talking about?
I know this. I know it's the county road, but you were buying
Yeah,
something in Amherstburg on Alma.
it's right next to a church there, and it had a single family house, and then it had might have been a garage turned into an ADU,
Hmm,
and we were because it was legal, we could use market rent for that to help us qualify.
nice.
There's some issues with the property, but and then we didn't end up pulling the trigger on it, but that because it was legal, boom, we could add 2 grand to the income on our application, right?
That's you should be able to use. Yeah.
Mhm.
Out of curiosity, what investment projects are you guys working on right now, or what have you worked on in the past? You mentioned you kind of alluded to something that you had that you were working on that could be almost like a test case.
Yeah, so we bought a triplex last year.
Oh, congrats!
Yeah,
Whereabouts?
so in Amherstburg, yep,
Okay.
on like towards downtown, and yeah, we it's great. We have great tenants, and it was our first one, so got our feet wet. We're managing on our own right now. Haven't been at a stage where we're going to hire a property manager, but it's been cool to learn the whole process, interviewing tenants
Oh
and
yeah.
dealing with their issues and fixing the property. But we're really enjoying it.
I think you will continue to enjoy it too, assuming you keep vetting your tenants well. It's in my opinion, I think we're all biased here though on this call, but
Yeah.
it's a no brainer. That's really cool, man. Do you plan on doing a lot more buy and holds, or do you plan on doing any new builds yourself in the future, flips? Kind of what's the strategy you want to kind of keep implementing moving forwards?
I think I would dabble into flips, mostly because I understand our flip financing product quite well
Hmm.
with Calvert. I'm not sure if you've heard of Calvert before.
I've used them twice so far. Yeah,
Okay, yeah,
yeah,
those guys are great. I think I would do it. I'm not an expert in contracting and figuring out how to have the property layout, and I'm I don't know if I'm quite ready for that yet. It is
yeah.
a lot of risk,
There's
but I think it's something that I'll get into. But I would like to, obviously team up with somebody who's done flips before. Like I have clients that are flippers,
hmm
and could learn a ton from them. But the financing part, sure,
yeah.
easy peasy.
Well, that's some
When
big
it
value
comes
that you could bring
down
to the table right there. Say, hey, I'll do our mortgage for us.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%. So
yeah,
I think that would be cool. In the sense that you're you're revitalizing an area too, right? Like yes, you're doing it to
absolutely.
make money, but you're not only fixing that property, but you're helping bring the other ones
Hmm.
up too.
Yeah, you're not
And
trying to be a slumlord here, and I don't think any of us are. Like we
no,
just want to leave the place better than we found it. And the process,
yes,
obviously, we make some money doing it, but it is nice to see your city or your town actually do well and have some nice houses instead of something
absolutely.
that's kind of nasty or dilapidated. Because I'm sure some people think, oh man, my neighborhood used to be so great, and then all of a sudden, over time, just gets worn down. So that's when the gentrifiers need to come in, like us, and make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I like the fact that you're an investor, but also doing the mortgages so that any investor like myself or Jeremy could come to someone like yourself and then have
Mhm.
confidence that the strategy that we're trying to do, and then be able to take care of what we need done.
Yeah, there's a lot of science that takes place. So
We also gotta, just kind of push that town councillor thing because I don't know if you know this or not. It's a little bit, it's on topic, a little bit off topic. But I was at Ryan Serhant, I think was it not last? It was the year before last year, so 2023 there, and it was at
oh
one of his conferences, and one of his keynote speakers was the mayor of Miami.
yes, I've
So
heard of
this
him.
guy the mayor of Miami is a part-time job, and his full-time job is he's a consultant for builders,
Oh no way.
and he
Okay.
helps
Is that
builders.
a conflict of interest? I wonder, like a little bit.
He helps builders but basically get through all the hurdles of building in Miami and all the paperwork. So,
Interesting. I had no idea about that. And you
yeah.
have a good point about like conflicts of interest is if there's a project that's coming before council that I am involved in, for sure, declaring a conflict of interest. And I didn't get into the mortgage business um, so that it would help my political career or vice versa. I was genuinely looking for a sales job that I could work around my council schedule. So
Mhm.
I'm always focused on keeping the two roles separate because you can run into situations where people are using you for your influence and I'm not that guy.
Hmm.
Like I'm committed to serving my clients the best way I can and helping build up our community and make it better. But it's interesting that the mayor of Miami is doing
It's
that.
Miami, right?
Well, yeah,
It's
It's
perfect
the
for
U.S.
Miami. I mean,
Yeah.
you think about it, it's like I wouldn't expect anything less from that. But
yeah.
honestly, I mean, it puts you into a good position in a sense of like you're hearing a lot of what people are doing, what people are going through. And then you're in the face of both developers and investors, but working with a lot of investors now that you're in the investor game and you know a bunch of people who are doing flips and stuff like that, you can relay some of the information and take that along. And obviously, there's multiple people on a council, but it helps keep you because honestly, the way that going back to Amherstburg 10 years ago is not the Amherstburg that you are today, right? It wasn't like, I
Mm.
don't, for some of the people that are listening to this, like Amherstburg was bankrupt not very long ago. They lost their they lost their
There's
police
some
force
funny
for a bit.
business
I think
with
there's some issues
the
going on.
mayor or something.
Sorry,
Yeah. Oh no, I was
sorry.
saying yeah, with Amherstburg there was some funny business going on. I believe. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know too much about that, but all I know is that the way it is now, it's just, I mean, on a nice Saturday, Sunday, nice weather out, go to coffee,
Yeah.
walk the pier, the Navy Pier, and then it's just, it's stunning. So to see something move along so quickly, but I mean that without the right people in place, not just the right investor, because to give you an idea, and I'm not, I don't know, we're not, none of us are counselors, none of us know what's going on, but from an investor point and a realtor, that's kind of, I would say, pretty well-rounded in the Windsor area. I've heard of a lot of people that have major money that would love to invest in downtown Windsor, but there is so much factors that are stopped, not just there's obviously some factors we would talk about, and obviously some factors that you're gonna go, oh, I don't want to have on this podcast here, but pretty much like it's very, very interesting to see how quickly it was put back together compared to some other areas where, for example, downtown Windsor, which should be a priority, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of resources that the city has been trying to throw, or even, playing darts there, but the investors aren't, either their investors are on the sideline.
I think it takes, like in Amherstburg, it takes one or two to really have that spiral effect. But you did bring up a good point about, like, I think my role as a mortgage agent has made me more effective on
Oh,
council. It's given me an expertise in some field. And I think if you look at any board, if you look at the board for Canada Goose as an example, or the Windsor Essex Chamber, any corporation that has a board on it, you want people in those seats that have different backgrounds. And the municipal act, the Conflict of Interest Act, or Conflict of Interest rules of the Municipal Act that governs 444 municipalities in Ontario, actually promotes people being entrepreneurs because they can have a different lens on issues, right? We have on council we have somebody who's an insurance agent.
oh
Uh,
wow.
so I don't know if I would be as effective if I didn't have a career outside of politics because that's all you know. You're absorbed in politics and the policies, but you have no background. I see this where you run into some issues where you have ministers leading a portfolio like housing that do not understand the ground level
Yeah,
of
they have
what
zero
takes place.
background or zero
Yeah, zero
financing background.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
No, I think that's a great point. It's nice to be well rounded, and that way you're not. Maybe echo chamber is not the right word, but having some world experience
mhm.
actually does help in many situations. It's nice to be
It's
more
like,
multidimensional versus just one dimensional in terms of I'm just this certain person in politics. So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
we appreciate that, Lyndon. I guess where can people connect with you for mortgage advice, maybe coffee with Kramer, all this stuff? Where can they find you, man? And how
Yeah,
can they get a hold of you?
lindencrain.com, coffeewithcrainer.com, Town of Amherstburg website, wherever you want to reach me, you can find me. I have my mortgage cell phone online. I have my council cell phone. If you just Google my name, I think you'll be able to call me and let me know, how I can help.
Right on, right on. Lennon, we really appreciate you hopping on this
Thank you
evening
again.
and hopping into this episode number 5 of the All Things REI podcast. We look forward to seeing you do great things for Amherstburg, and maybe someday you'll finance some mortgages for a lot of people watching this too.
Awesome.
And yeah,
Thanks,
thanks for all the
Jeremy.
advice.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Tom. Always enjoy seeing your content and the socials that you both are doing in the community. So thank you.
Likewise.
Likewise.
Like a lot of this stuff was set up similar to what you were doing as well, and that's kind of what we wanted to do, was stay with Windsor, stay local, and it gets you on here because, like as you mentioned, you're a person that has spoke with individuals that like we would love to chat with, right? And you bring in expertise, you bring in your own mindset too. So thank you for coming on. We really, really appreciate it, and we hope that we'll have you on again at some point.
Awesome. Thanks, gentlemen.